It's the first of three very, very big games, you feel, in Julen Lopetegui's reign as head coach at the club. As we take on Manchester United at London Stadium in the Premier League. It's a big game for both clubs, let's be fair. And in particular, actually, the managers. It feels like this is a huge game in regards to Lopetegui's future. And obviously needing to respond to what happened at Tottenham. But on the other hand, there's Ten Hag. You know, I actually get the feeling that if West Ham were to prevail in this game, it actually will be his last. I think he will get sacked. I think that his time at the club at Manchester United is coming to an end. It just feels like it's a matter of when rather than if, you know. But let's talk about Man United first, and we're going to West Ham. I mean, Manchester United are a club that are so far away from where they expect to be, as well, certainly their fan base do, but I'm sure as well the hierarchy at the club, they're so off the pace. They've been so off the pace now for so many years, and it's a club that's just declining and getting worse. It doesn't feel like that they are stepping towards something. It just feels like they're just so far behind where they expect to be, and I know that there are fans that rejoice in that and kind of enjoy seeing the likes of these big clubs struggling. And I kind of do get it, because you look at Manchester United and all the success they've had over the years, especially, you know, early days, me as a fan, you know, watching Manchester United being this dominant side throughout the 90s, just a joy to watch, really, because they were just so attack-minded and so much individual flair in their teams and just an unbelievable side, really. But they just dominated, didn't they, year after year, just this monster club. And always just seem to have a plan and to continue growing as a football club and to keep shifting from team to team and somehow getting stronger and stronger. It was just a remarkable club, and Alex Ferguson obviously was the driving force behind that, and they miss him so dearly because they've just never recovered since he's left. And I think it was always expected that they would have a period of transition, but I don't think many would have expected this kind of level now. We're talking a long time since Ferguson retired, and they are now no better off. If anything, they're worse, aren't they? They're so far away now from where they expect to be, and it's remarkable, really. It's you look at the state of the club as well. It's not just on the pitch, is it? It's off the pitch. The ownership and the relationship with the fan base is so strained. The investments have been so poor in terms of the recruitment of players. I think the infrastructure of the club's a bit diabolical, really. You look at the stadium; it just had no love and care now for so many years. And those images last season when you had the water pouring into the stadium, you know, just sort of, you know, reflective of where they are as a club. You know, just this forgotten time, you know. They're just it feels like Manchester United now are just so far behind where they need to be, and compared to where the other clubs are, I don't see them challenging. I really don't for a long time as well. There's just so much to be corrected there. It's not a quick fix, and yeah, it's a real problem. And then you can just see, you look at their league position. It's not lying. You know, you watch their performances have not been good enough. They're so inconsistent, and yeah, I just feel like it's inevitable that Ten Hag will be relieved of his duties. I feel like it's going to be before Christmas, to be honest. I'll be very surprised if he's here come the turn of the new year. So this could well be his last game if West Ham are to turn it on. I mean, I was thinking about Man United when I was doing this preview, right, and where they used to be as a club, and thinking back to the 90s and those years of complete dominance of the game, you know, on the European stage as well, not just in England. They were just an unbelievable club. And it, you know, if you'd think back to that time, Manchester United, what they typically done as well, not only did they have such a lure for every player, you know, it was like the pinnacle, wasn't it? Playing for Manchester United was the pinnacle of any player's sort of careers, where you wanted to get to that club. So they could kind of cherry pick who they wanted. They didn't even need to spend silly money. I mean, they did spend big money over the years. They were a big spender because they could, because of the revenue they're generating. You know, the massive market, you know, in terms of Asia and all that. You know, just a huge club globally. But they were able to go and get the best players in the Premier League. You know, you remember the Wayne Rooney, we'll have him. Old Dwight Yorke, we'll have him. Teddy Sheringham, we're having him. You know, they pick the best players out continuously doing it. just to keep that. Andy Cole was a big signing. I know they should have got Shearer. That was often one of their biggest mistakes. They weren't able to get him, but they were unbelievable. Even in later years, we're getting Van Nistelrooy and Veron obviously was a flop, but it's still a big name they brought through. I mean, Ronaldo, of course. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I look back, think of it now. If that would have been the same time now, they would have bought Harry Kane. Manchester United would have bought him. They would have bought Declan Rice. That's the players they should be getting, but they're just nowhere near it. You know what I mean? You couldn't even imagine those players even remotely being interested in slightly in going to Manchester United. It just shows where they actually are now. Just long gone are those days of dominating football. It's quite remarkable, actually. And I just feel like this is it's providing West Ham a good opportunity to play a club in this kind of disarray at the moment, because obviously we are suffering ourselves. So here's hoping, really. When you play Manchester United, I'm saying this now, you don't necessarily need to play your best. You don't need to put an outstanding performance in. Like you would have to against Man City, you have to against Arsenal, Liverpool. You have to play your very best to stand a chance. Whereas Manchester United, you just have to play all right and you might get a result. So I think that could well suit West Ham. And as I say, before I go to West Ham, the pressure on Ten Hag now is just massive. It just feels like it's inevitable now for him. Like, it reminds me of the David Moyes situation. Like, he kept his job because he won the FA Cup. Had he not won the FA Cup last season, I think he would have been dismissed. I don't think they would have had any interest in keeping him on. And it's just backfiring. We all see he needed to go then. From far as I'm concerned, I can't see any improvements at Manchester United. The recruitment policy has been shocking. I mean, some of the players that he's actually brought in as well, Ten Hag, have been awful. Anthony obviously being the kind of number one for that. But you look at the goalkeeper, is not good enough. I mean, there's just so many players you can pick out on that side that are just not good enough. Mason Mount, what a terrible signing. It just goes on and on and on. But I just feel like an outsider looking in. I mean, I might be wrong. Man United fans watching this might say I'm wrong, but it just feels like inevitable that he's going to go, and also feels inevitable like they're not going to replace him properly. When I look at Man United, I don't trust them to go and get the right manager, because they're just, how many more times are they going to have this opportunity to do that? It feels like a club you can't succeed in because of what's going on at the club. They brought Jim Ratcliffe in, of course. He's brought in a certain percentage of the club, and I know he's not taken full control yet, but I think the view was that he would. But I feel like there was this hope at the club that he was going to come in and shake things up, make it all exciting, make Manchester United compete again, and sort of get it back to basics. It just doesn't feel like that at the moment. I've not seen anything positive coming out since he's been there. The decision to remove Alex Ferguson from his custodian contract, whatever it is, I'm not. I mean, I can kind of understand it money-wise. It does seem like you're paying a lot of money to someone to sort of not do a lot. But at the same time, this is Alex Ferguson, like, you just unbelievable levels of success. And they wouldn't be where they were ever, because if it wasn't for him, I don't know. It's not good PR, is it? It's not sending the right message. And I can understand Manchester United fans being so frustrated. It just, as I say, it just feels like they're light years away from getting anywhere near and challenging the top again. But who knows? Maybe they will get the next appointment right, and they'll start to turn the corner a little bit, much like Arsenal did, obviously, with Arteta. But I just don't trust them to get it right. I really don't. I don't look at Manchester United and see a club that's well organised. It just feels like it's still in disarray. But enough about Manchester United. Let's talk about West Ham. I mean, this is a massive game for Julen Lopetegui. The pressure is just mounting and mounting on him. And there's two sides of this. I find the first side, which is quite right, the fact that West Ham haven't started the season well. We have been poor for the vast majority of our games. The tactics have looked quite inept at times. The players do look a bit lost. There's lots to be concerned about in terms of Lopetegui. I also do feel for him as well, though, in terms of this pressure, because I do feel like he's been undermined quite a fair bit within the club. I don't think that's helping the situation at all. I think he needs, if in a day he was brought in by the club, he needs to be backed by the club. I think they need to help, show a bit of levels of support and try and push things forward. It does feel, again, a little bit like Ten Hag. It feels a little bit inevitable that this is not going to end well at this stage. I really hope I'm wrong, but I don't see a positive outcome when it comes to Lopetegui at West Ham. I just don't see it at the moment, which is sad to say, isn't it? After all the summer of enjoyment and the excitement building about the new season and players coming in and this hope that we would kick on, it just doesn't feel like it's happening, does it? And the feel like the fact there's just so much fracture behind the scenes as well. It's just not boding well. It's not looking good at all. And it's massive pressure on Lopetegui for this, no doubt about it. In terms of team news, Nicholas Füllkrug is obviously out. We have no idea when he's going to be returning. It's turning out to be an absolute disastrous signing. This is just not helping. This is what's also not helping Lopetegui in a way, because what it's doing is you've then got, he's using this as an opportunity to hit Steidten with it and saying, well, you know, this player's not working out. It's adding pressure to Steidten, that is, because it's a flop signing at the moment. And I'm bearing in mind that we could have signed John Duran, really, couldn't we? If we'd have pushed the boat out, probably would have got him at West Ham. And it just doesn't help that we've got a player that's not kicking a ball, and the other one, Duran, is now signing a new long-term contract, scoring goals in the Champions League for fun. It's just not looking good on Steidten. So I feel like Steidten's trying to protect himself from his position by putting the finger a little bit at Lopetegui, and I feel like he's been undermined a fair bit. We're going to talk about that in another video tomorrow morning, actually, about the manager situation. Obviously, Jose Mourinho being linked. I mean, I'm going to talk about that and see what I'll give my thoughts on that one. But yeah, it's a difficult situation. Obviously, Füllkrug being out is one that we're kind of used to. From in terms of a team perspective, it's nothing too grand. You don't think, oh my god, what are we going to do at Füllkrug? Well, we haven't really had him, so it makes no difference to us. But it just doesn't help the fact we haven't got a striker once again. You know, we're still in this situation where we're relying on Mikel Antonio. It's just another season of that. It's remarkable. It's got to be what, year 4, year 5 of this now, that we're just constantly relying on the same player to lead the line and no other options. It just feels like we never sort of seem to be getting out of that. Even after we've signed players, I mean, you know, we bring in Haller, but we're turning to Scamacca. We turn to Antonio. We bring in Scamacca, we turn to Antonio. Now we brought in Füllkrug, we're turning to Antonio again. It's just, we never seem to be able to get away from this scenario. It's a real mess. And obviously Mohamed Kudus is out. He's suspended, likely to be longer than 3 games, I think, at this stage. But West Ham have appealed the additional suspension situation, but he's going to be in big trouble. So my gut feeling says he'll be out for about 5 games. So it's a huge blow, because considering the fact he's pretty much our best player on his day at the moment. And obviously then we've got the Lucas Paqueta situation, which just feels like a complete mess. It's just much like West Ham at the moment. It's not helping. I feel like this game, if you're Lopetegui, just eliminate risk. You know, don't try anything fancy. Don't try anything stupid. Don't try anything like creative and really clever and a bit out there. I think just get your basics right. And I think when you think of basics at the moment, play your best players that are ready to play. Lucas Paqueta is not ready to play. It's quite obvious that his head is not in the game. He's struggling mentally. You can just see it in him. He's with what's going on in this whole betting allegation stuff. It's not helping. And I think you can't ignore it. You can't just keep pretending it's not happening. It's quite obvious that he's suffering. Just take him out of the equation. You can't afford to have a player on the pitch as a liability that's not fully focused. It's just got to be done. So I think that's an easy win for me for Lopetegui. And Lopetegui needs to start showing that he's getting the grips of what's going on here. If he continues to play Paqueta, it just indicates that he hasn't actually got a grip of what's going on, because we can all see it. And if he can't see it, then it just isn't boding well. And I feel like it's it's something else that he can be hit with, you know what I mean, in terms of from the fan base, from and everyone else, to say, look, you know, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's playing players that are just not ready. So for me, that's one that needs to be addressed. This is my team, and I'm going to give you my score. I'd like to know what you think on the situation. Obviously, want to know what your scores are as well. So it always creates good discussion. And obviously, team selection is as well. So this is what I'm going to go for. I'm going for Lucas Fabianski in goal. I've had enough of Areola at the moment. I'm not a big fan of him. I'm going to be honest. I've never really been sold on Areola as a goalkeeper. He's a good shot stopper at times. I think that's as far as I go with him. I feel like he's crossings, dealing with crosses is terrible. For a big guy, he comes across quite timid, I think, when he comes to try and collect the ball. His distribution was atrocious against Tottenham. I've just had enough of him, really. I just feel like he's a bit overrated. I know it's a bit harsh possibly on him. I don't want to try and be nasty on him, but I just do. I feel like he's very overhyped as a goalkeeper. I've never really been sold him, because he pulls off like those sort of special saves. It masks everything else, I think, at times with him. You know, you go, oh yeah, what a brilliant goalkeeper. It's like, yeah, but the rest of his game is not good enough. And I've just not been impressed with him. And I feel like it's hampering us. It's hampering our defence as well, because you need a goalkeeper behind you trust. And for me, he's not trustworthy at all. So I think bring in Fabianski. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going, oh my God, Fabianski, bring him back. For me, Fabianski needs replacing soon. We need a better goalkeeper. That's kind of my point in this sort of ramble here about the goalkeepers. I just feel like we need another goalkeeper this summer or even in January. Get it sorted because he's not good enough at all. Areola for me, I'll be moving him to back up and having someone else come forward because I just don't rate him, I'm afraid. So for me, Lucas Fabianski comes in. I'm hoping that would actually give a little bit of confidence to the defence. And the defence is kind of obvious, I feel. I imagine we're all going to pretty much have the same here. I'm going for Aaron Wan-Bissaka at right back, Todibo, Kilman and Emerson as my back four. Midfield is really tricky with this game because of the lack of options of players that are in form and the lack of evidence that we're seeing players playing well together. It feels like every time that we get some evidence of that they played quite well, it then feels like the next game they played terribly, and you can't quite then. It's hard to pinpoint where you are with it, you know. That's what I just feel at the moment with this team. There's a few positions that are kind of set. I think the back four are pretty much set for me now. I feel like that's pretty good. The goalkeeper, as I said, is a big problem. That's why I think Fabianski needs to come in. But the midfield is concerning. Edson Alvarez, for me, comes in. And then it's who partners him. Well, I was going to say Rodriguez, and I feel like he kind of deserves to be kept in because I thought he played quite well against Tottenham. However, I want to see a creative player in there, and this midfield three, playing ahead of these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Thomas Souček alongside Alvarez. The reason being because I just feel like you need Souček on the pitch. He gives options, doesn't he, in terms of goal scoring threat, and we don't have a lot this season, do we? Antonio's not been at it. Bowen's obviously has got a threat on him. Of course, he's a great player. We've lost Kudus now. I'm probably going to be out now for, we're not going to see him until mid-November, something like that, or maybe longer, aren't we? It's going to be considerably longer than that, probably December time now, because of this ban. So I'm really feel like it's something that we just have to try and get the balance right in terms of getting our goal threat correct. So I just feel like we need Thomas Souček in this team. So I'm going to go for Alvarez and Souček as the midfield. I'm putting Carlos Soler in is playing ahead, playing behind the front three. Only reason because I don't want to see Paqueta in the team. I don't really have any other options, I don't feel, for that role. I feel like this is where we're starting to suffer with some of our transfer dealings this in the summer. You look at that team now and feeling like we could have had better options in there. I just don't like it. I've not been impressed with Soler so far, really. So I feel like this is a good opportunity to get him in, show him what he's all about, and just give. At the end of the day, we brought him in. And if he can't get in ahead of Paqueta, then what's the point of him being here? So that's what I'm gonna go with. So it'd be Alvarez, Souček, and Soler in the middle. I'm gonna put Jared Bowen out on the right, Somerville, of course, out on the left, and Antonio up front. I mean, for Somerville, this is a massive opportunity. You feel this Kudus ban could be a bit of a blessing for us. I know it seems bizarre to say because it's Mohamed Kudus, and I've gutted it's him. But what I'm hoping it might do is just give some balance to this team. Actually have a natural left winger, a natural right winger in Bowen, and then a striker in Antonio. I'm just hoping that sort of front three might just feel a little bit more balanced. But that's not to say we're not going to miss Kudus. It's a shame. I'd rather have Kudus playing through the middle, or even as a striker, because I've just not still been sold on Antonio at the moment. Really, he's just getting on, isn't he? We're not getting beast mode enough from him now. So yeah, that's my team. Just to go for it again. So Fabianski in goal, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Todibo, Kilman, and Emerson at the back. I'm going to go for Alvarez and Souček in the middle. Carlos Soler playing behind the front three of Bowen, Somerville, and Mikel Antonio. I'm going to go for a draw in this game. I've got a feeling we're going to get something out of it. It doesn't even bear thinking about losing, actually. And I know it sounds ridiculous because people will say, well, a bit disrespectful to Manchester United. But Man United, not the team they were. This isn't Manchester United of old, is it? We're at home. We're against a Manchester United side that's just played in Europe, in Turkey, and they were poor in the draw against Fibonacci, against obviously Jose Mourinho, their former manager. But they weren't good enough. They've been so poor this season. They look like a team that's really deflated. I think this is a big opportunity for West Ham. I think if West Ham can play all right, I think we can win this game. As I've said, I don't think you don't have necessarily to play amazing to beat Man United. Now just put in a half decent performance and you can get something out of the game. But Manchester United going to be gunning for this and up for it? I'm not sure. It just depends on who's going to show up for them. So I've kind of got on the fence a little bit. I'm going to go for a draw, but I think there's going to be goals in this. So I'm going to say West Ham 2, Manchester United 2, which, it will only sort of delay things for both managers, I feel. I mean, whether that be enough for Ten Hag, I'm not sure. He's in a slightly different predicament than Lopetegui. But Lopetegui, the pressure is certainly building. And this is a big, big game. Come on, you Irons.